Hello everyone, my name is Angel Arnino and today I would like to talk about the digital self and other in cyberspace. At the end of this lesson, you are expected to discuss about online identity and their self in cyberspace and user ID, expound selective self-presentation and impression management, evaluate the impact of online interactions of the self, and lastly, establish boundaries of the online self, private versus public, personal versus social identity online, gender and sexuality online. Online identity and self in cyberspace. So, online identity is also called internet identity or internet persona. It is a social identity that an internet user establishes in online communities and websites. Online identities are associated with users through authentication, which typically requires registration and logging in. Some websites also use the user's IP address or tracking cookies to identify users. It can also be considered as an actively constructed presentation of oneself. Sometimes the different representations of you are referred to as partial identities because none of them has the full true picture of who you are. So, how do you build your online identity? Every website that you interact with will collect its own version of who you are based on the information that you have shared. Here are the examples of data points that can help form a digital identity: username and password, purchasing behavior or history, date of birth, social security number, online search activities such as electronic transactions and medical history. Selective self-presentation is the process of creating a digital artifact which is carefully chooses a representation or expression of one's real-world self. So there are types of self-presentation: authentic, ideal, and tactical self-presentation. Your goal in authentic is to create an image consistent with the way we view ourselves. Ideal is to establish an image consistent with what we wish we were. And tactical self-presentation is to establish a public image consistent with what others want or expect. Impression management is a conscious or subconscious process in which people attempt to influence perception of other people. When interacting with other people, we cannot help but wonder what they are thinking about. Online interaction does not require cognitive and emotional involvement, making our interaction with it much easier. This suggests that interacting with human partners require more emotional involvement and cognitive effort than interacting through a computer. So is it true that Facebook provides opportunities for increased identity development? Yes, several studies link Facebook use to positive effects, such as the satisfaction of users' needs for feelings of self worth and self integrity, an improvement in the quality of existing friendship, and the perception of greater subjective well being. Studies were conducted to show that within the first 2 years after people accessed the internet, their happiness level decreased. Russell W. Belk, on his extended self in a digital world, could give more light on the topic. Belk presents five changes emerging from current digital age. Dematerialization. Things are disappearing right before our eyes. Our information, communications, photos and videos, music, calculations, messages, written words are now largely invisible and immaterial, composed of electronic streams stored in a digital storage devices in location we will never know. Dematerialization has changed in the digital world as Bach describes our possessions, such as photos, videos, music, and information, are now all immaterial and can all be stored on our electronic devices, where we can view them whenever we want with the click of a button. Today, this formative act of consumption no longer requires we physically possess an object. Music, along with photos, videos, even our written words, are largely invisible and immaterial until we choose to call them forth. In other words, digital natives are growing up in a world where many of their possessions aren't actually physically possessed. Belk proposes four functions of virtual consumption: stimulates consumer desire for both material and virtual goods, actualizes possible daydreams such as those of wealth and status by enacting them in video games, actualizes impossible fantasies such as being magician or space pirate with magical objects, facilitates experimentation such as being a criminal in a video game. Re-embodiment escorts craft an online persona that is digital representation of the self, which is manifested in the embodiment of their digital body or avatar. This study contributes to a small but growing body of literature on Second Life and expands the existing work on embodiment and privacy in the digital realm. Beck describes re-embodiment as how in the age of social media our faces has seen so much online that we have become an online avatars. Bell continues to say how we can so easily change our appearance with the use of filters that we have created between our online self and actual appearance. Sharing. Uploading, downloading, sharing, and etc. provides free access of information through web surfing. How does sharing of possessions online enhance our individual and aggregate sense of self? The Internet is described by Belk as being a cornucopia of information that anyone can access, mostly for free. This is how the extended self of sharing has changed in the digital world as we can access information like never before. With digital devices making it so easy to find it in any piece of information, it is clear how the sharing aspect has changed massively. Belk especially talks about how anyone with a Facebook account can share any personal information they want, and how it is a key part of self presentation for one sixth of humanity. Co construction of self. Our digital involvement is social in nature. Our blogs invite comments, social interaction which help in constructing our individual and joint extended sense of self as the new version of Cooley's looking glass self theory known as the collaborative self. What are the effects of these? Seeking affirmation is obviously identified. Friends also help to construct and reaffirm each other's sense of self through their postings, taggings, and comments. With online tagging, comments, endorsements, and other such responses to our digital self presentations, we fracture Cooley's notion of the looking glass self. Even selfies, which would seem to be entirely in our control, are subjects to the co constructing responses of others. Co-construction of self is how our digital involvement are mostly social. For example, social media is increasingly being used for communication and interaction, which help in constructing our individual and joint extended sense of self. Distributed memory. In a digital world, there is a new set of devices and technologies for recording and archiving our memories. Distributed memory is defined as the non-digital objects that form a part of the extended self are often able to provide a sense of past through their associations with events and people in our lives. This includes photographs, souvenirs, and etc. While in the digital world, all your memories can be recorded and archived to view later. Boundaries of the online self. In setting your boundaries to your online self, you should stick to safer sites, guard your passwords, be choosy about your online friends. Remember that anything you put online or post in a site is there forever, even if you try to delete it. Don't mean or embarrass other people online. And lastly, limit what you share.